Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today evening. And I'm really happy that all of you are here. My name is Ila Qureshi, and I welcome all of you to another live session organized by MyCaptain. So this Power Talk is actually in collaboration with Qfuss. Qfuss is actually a mentorship platform with a community of experts who can guide individuals in their journey. Also, Qfuss hosts coaching and workshops on different topics to enhance your skills. So I will drop their website in the chat box, and you can please go ahead and check them out. So coming to the webinar, today we have Mr. Prateek Gupta, who is actually the senior product designer of Flipkart. To give you his amazing but brief introduction, Prateek has 8 years of experience developing user-centered design systems and complex transactional web and mobile applications. His expertise is in applying human factor principles to design products that are efficient, effective, and satisfying at every touch points. His experience lies in end-to-end user experience, from discovery research to interaction design to usability testing. So we are very happy to have you here with us. So for our attendees, as you all know, today Pratik is going to share his insights on how to create an impactful UI UX design, and he'll also share with us on how to build the user experience for your product. So without any further ado, it's over to you, Pratik. Please take ahead.
Thanks, Ella. Hey guys, I hope everyone is having good time. So what we'll do today is, as Ella mentioned, that I'll walk you through some presentation which will help you designing a better product for user, and not just the product, not just a digital product, but any product. So it will be a very generic presentation of being like how the life as a product designer, and I'll give you some things, some tips which you can create impactful products for your users. And I'll also share with you one of the methodology that you can use to build up an amazing experience for the product for your users. So I'll share my screen. What we'll do is we'll go for like first 20 minutes. I'll share the screen. I'll walk you through the presentation that I've created for you all. After that, I'll open for Q&A, and whenever like whatever questions you guys have, feel free to ask. So I'll be answering those. I'll be taking them one by one. So all of you can see my screen, right? Ella, is it visible?
Yes, it is.
Cool. Yes, guys. So today, today's topic is impact your audience with exceptional UI UX design. To be frank, UI and UX, we use this term with a slash, but these two terms are way apart from both of these and not in a way relation with each other. So I'll have two different slides to tell you how can you build exceptional UX design, and the second slide will be how you will build an exceptional UI design. So just to get everyone on the same page, UX is a wider term and UI is a part of a UX. I'm not sure if everyone of you know that. So UX stands for user experience and UI stands for user interface. And UX is a big process. From that process, one in the end, like when you are designing a product, when you started brainstorming ideation about a product, you start, so that all methods that you use comes under UX. And when you are designing the interface, let's say for a digital interface, for a web or for a mobile application, that comes as a user interface. So yes, so first, thanks Ella, like you gave a really nice description about me, but I'll tell something other than that what Ella said. So this is Prateek. I'm born and brought up in Jaipur, Rajasthan, and my background in education is a bachelor in computer application. I did BCA from Chandigarh, and I started my first career. I started my job. My first job was a graphic designer. I was a graphic designer in an advertising company in Chandigarh. So just after my graduation, I started doing some freelance project. I started designing. I got my first laptop and I started designing, and that's how I got my job in an advertising company as a graphic designer. But soon, like after in 2011, I did my first internship after that advertising job. I did my internship in a web designing company. So that was an e-commerce company in Chandigarh, and I started working as a web designer. And that's how I moved from my career, like from graphic design to a web designer. And then after that, after completing 1 year as a web designer, knowing all the trends and all, 2012 is where I moved to Hyderabad and I got my first job as a UX. And that's how like I started my journey in UX. So from 2012 till 2020, I've been working in UX. Uh, and and I have got a chance to work in multiple domains. I've worked in healthcare, specifically in US healthcare. I've worked in e-commerce company. Right now, I'm working with Flipkart, so I'm in an e-commerce. I've worked in a gaming company. I've worked in an enterprise data management company and identity management company. So I have worked in multiple domains. Each domain has a different way of how they work, how the product works, what are the users, their end users. So every time I used to switch, there's a new learning for different domains. And well, right now I'm still learning. I moved to e-commerce. Right. So let's start. So whenever like we talk about product design, right? Whenever we talk about like, whenever you hear that, dude, I have an idea and I want to create a product out of it. So there are few fundamental questions that every product designer asks, or not even a product designer, but everyone asks. So like, whom are we designing for? Like whatever product you come up with or whatever product you're using. Let's say we are using Zoom. So for whom we are designing, what kind of people they are. So these are some of the basic questions that every product designer or any person who is involved in the whole product development cycle should be able to answer this. And these are few of the questions like, who are we building products for? Who all are our end users? How will our user use our products? What are the current pain points? So currently we have millions and millions of products online, right? So what is the specific thing that why a user will switch from the existing product that he's using to your new product? And the only answer to that is because if there are some pain points that a person currently have, so your product should be able to answer those, should be able to solve those pain points. And so as I mentioned, like there are so many products, in the whole world. Even when you open your phones, right? Uh, there are millions and millions of applications. And when you are an owner of an application, what is the like, how can you make it so special for your end users who are going to use it? Why should they come to your application again and again? So why answer is this. So how can you create an exceptional UX design? How can you build a exceptional user experience around your application, around your product, so a user again and again come to your products? It's the same. It's the same psychology. So in your current life, right? When you visit a shop, when you go to any shop to shop anything, maybe clothes, maybe shoes, anything, right? So after some time you make a mind and you start going to that shop again and again and very frequently. It's because you have made that kind of perception around that shop, that okay, this shop is good shop. And why you do that is maybe because of the good quality products you get from there, maybe because of the shopkeeper, right? He greets you, he entertains you, he tells you actually like how the product feedback is. So in the same way, even how that user experience you can design well for your products, so any user can come again and again and will use your product. So here are few 7 factors that are important for any product to have an exceptional user experience around it. So first is usefulness. uh, your product should be useful, right? When I say there are useful is like there are millions and millions of products again in the market. What is the unique point, what is the unique selling point about your product that motivates any user to use your product, right? Maybe your product is easy, maybe your product is easily findable, right? The name or whatever things, right? Second is usable. So there's a difference between useful and usable. When I say usable, is we are talking about usability. What kind of users are going to use your product? Are those like young kids? Are you creating an educational app for young children, right? Or you are creating an application or any product for old age people? So you always have to keep that thing in mind, that what kind of users will be using it, and you have to take care of the usability. Like kids, if you're designing for kids, right, they like bright colors, so your application should be bright colors. But when you're designing for old people, right, they don't like bright colors, they need bigger fonts, so those kind of things. So the usability of application is very important. Third is findable. So your product, as I mentioned, should be findable. Whenever a user is looking for a solution, at that moment, your product should be there. So when you're planning for travel, right, and you don't get the correct travel app from where you are planning to travel, and later on when you're buying vegetables, that time you find that travel app, then there is no use, right? So it should be findable. That's why we see a lot of hoardings, a lot of brandings. We see all these ads. So whenever you start talking, or you start thinking about, you start browsing about some of the products, right? Whenever you open any social media, right, you see the similar ads. You see when you start talking about traveling, right? Whenever you open a Facebook, you'll see a Make My Trip ad. So in such way, so it should be findable. Credible, as I mentioned, see, once a user loves your product, he's again and again going to come to your product. And even the vice versa. Once a user have a bad experience about your product, they will never come again to your product. So your product should make that first experience of a user amazing. It can be in design, it can be about your service, what kind of service you are presenting, and all those things. And when I say design, right, desirable. So desirable comes the next factor. It should be desirable, right? We should follow what kind of designs, as I mentioned, what kind of users we are talking about. We should design in such a way that they enjoy your product, they enjoy your services. And like just for an example, right? If we are talking about some kind of video cameras, right? So now people don't like to carry those big video cameras, right? So they need something small to carry away. That's why, like, that's where the GoPro, when you see those actionable cameras like GoPro, they came in handy. And people started using them in sports and all those things. So but they already had phones, right? So when I'm saying this, right, so phones have good cameras nowadays, but still, when we talk about GoPro, they took over the market. So the kind of experience they gave, the kind of thing, that actually the kind of branding they did, that those are actionable cameras, right? People, when they are skiing, when they are doing skating, they use those kind of cameras. They're really, instead of using phone cameras, because those are really handy. Those are really small cameras. Fifth, the next one is accessible. Accessible, again, we get the term from accessibility. When I say accessible, is like we have to consider people who are different from us, right? People who have some kind of disability. So we cannot ignore such kind of users. We have to design for everyone. So there are few people who cannot read small fonts. There are few people who cannot uh, see properly. So we have to take care of such kind of edge cases. We have to take care of such kind of accessibility feature. These kind of features should be there in your product when you're designing, right? If you notice, I'm not sure, but most of the websites, like mostly government websites, have this kind of small a and capital A kind of icon on the top right. If you'll see on those websites, those are actually for people who cannot read small fonts. So actually, you can go there and increase the font, and then the whole website or the application, it renders in a bigger font, and it's easy for everyone to use. So don't ignore such kind of users, right? Design for everyone, design for accessibility. The last one is valuable. Yes. Most important is like your product, your service should be valuable to the user, right? There should be a value behind it, why a user should use it. And it should give that kind of value to your user, like whatever, right? Whatever it can be. Like Swiggy allows you to sit at home and order and get your favorite food at your doorstep, right? You don't have to travel, you don't have to go through the whole traffic, you don't have to go from one place to other place. So like that's creating a value. You are saving a lot of things, so you don't mind paying something extra for delivery, right? So that was about user experience. Now let's talk about user interface. When you're designing a digital product, when we talk about web application, we talk about phone application. So what are few things that you need to consider to create an impactful user interface for your users? So one is color, as I mentioned, and I'm not sure if you guys know, but color has a psychology behind it. Like when we see some kind of color, right, we already have some kind of notion in our mind. When so why most of the error uh, when error pops out, right, it's in red in color. Why when you are getting some kind of success message, right, it's green in color. So these kind of, when you see the colors, right, you have some kind of understanding about it. So you should always use colors in your application very wisely. What kind of application you're designing, for which country, for what kind of users you're designing, that is very important to get one thing considered, right? And as I mentioned previously, I gave an example, like when you're designing for kids, it's like vibrant colors, right? Use vibrant colors. That will make your product more desirable for that kind of user segments. Be consistent. A lot of websites, when even when I go through a lot of website now every day, like I see a lot of differences, right? From one page to other page, there are different button size, there are different icons used, there are different language used. So be consistent in those. When you are giving a person a single product, right, you don't want to give them a different experience, that on one page you are using something, on the other page you are using something else. Be consistent in that. Typography, again, like what kind of fonts you use. Are those soft fonts, are those serif fonts, are those sans serif fonts? So what kind of, when even when you pair those fonts, and don't use multiple fonts, don't use like 10 fonts in your product, don't use it like 20 fonts in your product. Those are really really tough to read. So those kind of things should be even taken care when you are designing a digital product. What kind of typography, what size of font should be there, where should you use capital case, where should you use uppercase, where should we use small case. So those kind of things. The fourth one is language. So when now you talk to anyone, right, when you talk to a real person in your real life, right, you get to know those person a lot by the way they speak, the way they talk. It's the same thing is in with your digital products. The kind of language that you use in your digital product, the button label, the text, the language, what kind of sentences have you formed, right? Those meant a lot, and those are really responsible for your giving the whole user interface and impactful design. Uh, the fifth one is easy navigation, which is really, I think every one of you know, right? And every one of you use e-commerce application. You use different applications, right? You use those products who are easy to navigate. You don't have to look for things around, and you don't want to spend a lot of time in looking or finding for the things that you came for, right? You don't have time. You need things quick. When you're ordering food, right, you need an easy navigation so you can actually reach your end goal. The last one is feedback. Feedback, when I say feedback, is like when there is some kind of error, when there is some kind of mistake that a user did while using your products, give them a feedback. Tell them how can they solve it, what wrong has gone, right? If there is, like, if a person is unable to make the payment, is it because of internet connection? Is it because of the bank issues? Like, what kind of issue is it? Don't let user guess it. Give them feedback. So that is the feedback. So these are few points and these are few tips that you can use around to create an exceptional UI and UX design. So one of the most important tool I'll talk to you about today is that we use uh, uh, today to explore and to get all these things that I just talked about is journey map. So basically, what are the journey map? Journey maps are actually the visual representation of the whole user journey. So whenever you are planning for any product, right, and you want to deliver and you want to make a really good product, you need to understand your users, right? And how can you understand your user is uh, by understanding their journey, by understanding their journey from the point A till the point B to achieve their goal for which they're using your product. So that's why we use journey maps, right? And journey maps are in comes in very like a lot of shapes, a lot of formats, right? And you can create your own format as well. But I'll be showing you what I use and which is a very generic thing and what all things that I have. And little bit I'll also tell you about how can you create those kind of what kind of methods you can use to get those kind of findings that you'll use in your journey map. So one question is like when to use this journey map. So one is like you can use any time, like any time in your whole product life cycle. So a product has a life cycle. So a product when right from its ideation phase where you are thinking about what features should I have, what problems will my product solve. So right from the ideation phase till it goes live, you can use this journey map anywhere, anytime. It will plug in anywhere and it will help you creating an impactful product for your user. And who all are involved in creating this journey map is your whole team. It includes your product managers, leadership, your end users, SMEs. SMEs are nothing but your special these people who are well trained, who are using similar products, who knows your users like from way back, right? So every time, sometimes in our companies, you cannot reach to end users. So basically, we talk to the subject matter experts who are our SMEs who actually tell us about everything. They know detail about your users. They know detail about your products, what they are using, what they are not using, and what products you can use to create such kind of journey map is. You can create your own. You can even use your PowerPoint presentation to create your journey map, but there are few products who are in market who actually give you templates, ready-made templates like Miro, Lucidchart, Samply, UXpressia. So these all are free to use. I mean, there's a paid version as well, but you can actually like register as a free user and you can use them to create these journey maps. Quickly, like what are the benefits of the journey map? So as I mentioned, like even like whatever we talked about, right? To create all those things, to know all the pain points, to create an impactful UX and UI, first you need to understand the users, right? So that's why we built a journey map. And why specifically journey map? What journey maps tells us? So journey maps tell us the whole, whatever the identify users pain points. So whatever pain points, if a user currently using any of the product, what are the still the pain points that they are experiencing? Is it too bad? Is it very tough to use? So those kind of things. It tells the potential bottlenecks in a whole system. So when you talk about the whole journey of a user to achieve a goal, right? So you're talking about the whole surroundings, whole. So you will come to know that, oh, this is the point where a user is getting stuck in the whole system, or this is the point where a user is going through the most painful task. So you have to take care of those points there. It gives a create one shared source of information. As I told you, like everyone contributes to create this kind of journey. So there is one source of information where everyone, even the product managers, your developers, and everyone can go and refer it back to. It covers all the touch point of a user. So when you're talking about the whole journey, right? So when, like, just for an example, so a journey of a user to order a food, right? So let's say we'll talk about a user right from starting when he's watching a advertisement and he sees some kind of food advertisement, and that's where that thought comes up in your mind that today even I should eat something good, right? So and then from that point till you get the food in your hand, right? So let's say when we talk about you use Swiggy, you use Zomato, and that you order a food and that the food delivery guy comes to your home, he delivers your food. So when I get my food and when I start eating, that's the goal that I achieved, right? So when we are talking about the whole journey, so in the whole journey, like what all touch points I did. I saw a TV commercial, I used my phone, I had a word with a customer care executive, let's say if my order is late, right? So those all are touch points. I received the food from the delivery boy. So those all are touch points. Understand user goal and behavior. So as I mentioned, like when you are ordering a food, right? Understand those goals, that what user want to achieve and what behavior he goes through. And and whatever in that journey, whatever unnecessary touch points that you can minimize. So there are different kinds of maps that we talk about, and we use all of these in our uh, UX methods when we want to see and when we want to uh, get out such kind of result, when we want to know about users, right? So like the first one is journey map that I'm already talking about, right? There is experience map also. So the experience map, the only difference is even that talks about experience of a user, but it's bigger than a journey map. Like it talks about multiple users, not just about the one user, right? When a journey maps talk about me, I want to order a food, so we'll talk about my journey. But when we are designing an experience map, we'll talk about the whole journey. So we'll talk about the delivery boy experience also, how he is experiencing. We'll talk about the user, which is I'm who's ordering the food. We'll also talk about the restaurant, right? So how restaurant is getting and receiving the order, they are preparing it. So experience map is a bigger thing, and service blueprint is something which is inside a journey map. So when we talk about one flow and you design the whole end-to-end journey about it, what all different components about service components, what all people are getting involved, what kind of service is getting involved, that is known as a service map. So this is the basic structure of a journey map that if I'll tell you about, like where like on the top we use so as I mentioned that a journey map is only for one user or one user type. So difference between a user and user type is user type, I'm talking about, let's say, young people. So that's a user type. But when I'm talking about a hungry person like me, we're talking about a persona, right? And so we have user picture here, we have user name, we give a fictitious name, we never use a exact user name, and a scenario. So just like how I use my scenario of ordering a food. We have on the right hand side, we have a goal. So what kind of goal I want to achieve? A user want to order a food, that's my goal. And what kind of expectation I have, what kind of like the food should deliver within 20 minutes, right? That's my expectation. The second thing is after that we have a chronological order, we have different phases. So my whole cycle from opening an app till receiving a order, we divide that into a different phase, and we actually divide them in different phase and in a chronological order. So like first, again, if I take an example of a food app, I start thinking. So we'll have a pre-order phase where I'm thinking about food, where I'm referring to different restaurants, right? So that's a pre-order phase. Then is a order phase. Then is post-order phase. So like that, we'll divide into different phases. And in that different phases, we'll have a swim lane where we talk about what kind of action a user does, what kind of thoughts he's having, what kind of emotions, right? When I see different food, I really get excited. I really get happy. Wow, it's look yummy. So the kind of photos we should use, and what are the pain points. So we can use those pain points. And as I mentioned, as I mentioned, like you can have your own different format for it. Some people even use photos. Some people even use similar kind of products which are still available. They stick those kind of products here. They put the picture of those kind of things. So you can modify them in a different way. So my last slide will be about like how can you, so you just can't fill these things of your own, right? You need to have some kind of research. You need to talk to people like to go through these. So what kind of features you use, what kind of different research methods you use to get these things. So there are different research methods. that you need to perform to create a journey map. And once you have a journey map, you can always go back and refer to it whenever you are designing or whenever you're stuck in somewhere. When you are how you want a kind of empathy, right? Like if a user gets stuck here, how he'll be thinking, right? So every time you just cannot call a user and ask them that, okay, how you're feeling, right? But so in a product, in companies like Flipkart, in company like the previous companies I have had, so we refer to such kind of journey maps where if we get stuck, right, at that moment, at that point, what a user will be thinking. So the first thing when we are talking about user, right, you can create them by, if you have a good user persona. And how you create a user persona is by user interview, by contextual inquiries, by sending surveys. The goals and expectation you can get again through interviewing those users, right? That what are your goals when you are ordering a food? What are your expectations? So just how I mentioned, right? Like I want my food hot. I want my food in 20 minutes. So those are my expectations, right? You can have these kind of phase that I talked about, like pre-order phase, order phase. These you can actually write a proper story. So we have this kind of exercise we call it storyboarding, where we actually take a user and we actually depict a story right from starting till we draw a story. So from those story, you can actually pick out those phases of these journey map. And when I talked about like how you are feeling, like how a user feels sad, when a user feels excited, those things you can get through empathy map. So these all are different UX methodologies that we use today. You can always Google them. You can see how to use them, how you can use them, when to use them. So you'll get a lot of articles about it. In case if you have any problem, feel free to reach to me, ask me. And that's at the end. So and that's how like each phase will have different pain points, and in the end these pain points will be features for your product, will be features for your service, whatever you're providing. So that's it from my side. Feel free to ask me questions and all.
Amazing. Thank you, Pratik. That was a really insightful presentation. Guys, whatever question you have, you can drop it in the chat box. You can also drop it in the Q&A section, and Pratik will take the questions one by one. So, Pratik, we have one question. The name is not, so the anonymous person is asking us, what is the difference between user persona and customer journey?
Okay, so cool, very good question. I think there is not much difference. So so one is like user persona and there is a customer personas, right? So you are talking personas and personas, and when you talk about customer journey, you compare it with user journey. So like a persona is actually a fictitious way where you describe a person, right? You describe how a person feel, you describe what kind of motivation they have to use your product. So that is known as a persona. But when you talk about journey, right? Journey is what we explained here. So right from point A, where I start my experience till achieving my goal, right? That's a journey. So some people call it user journey, some people call it customer journey. So basically, if you are using a product, right, and you're working and you're describing a journey about your users who are going to use your product, you call them users. So we call it a user journey. But when you're talking about a service industry, right, when the end users are using a service, right, those are your customers. When and you can use it anywhere. You can use this kind of journey in even in your marketing, in your selling. So any domain, right? It's not just limited to UX. So when marketing people use it, when sales people use it, they call it customer journey because that's the terminology they use. So they call it a customer journey.
Okay. Okay. There is another question. Sir, I'm totally a beginner. It's from Priyanka Kumari. She is totally a beginner in the industry, and she would like to know that how can she start learning things, because she is confused that how can she build up her career.
Cool. So if you are really interested about product designing and you want to go into user experience, right, and use user interface, I'll tell you. So right now, I'm assuming everyone is in college, right? You are still graduating. You are still in your mid years, or like you're going to graduate this year. don't invest too much when you're not sure that this is the career path you want to take, right? There are a lot of free courses you can use. You can go to Udemy, you can go to Coursera. There are a lot of free courses where you can learn about user experience. You can start learning about them. You can that will actually give you a mindset that what exactly you are getting into. And once you are interested that, oh, this is what I want to become, I want to become a product designer, I want to become a user experience designer, right? I want to become an interaction designer. Even in design, there are a lot of different fields. So I'll suggest always start with a free course first. You have Udemy, you have Coursera, uh, uh, you have interactiondesign.org. So there are a lot of different websites who are giving free course. Take those course, make up your mind what kind of designer you want to be, what kind of career path you want to be, and then you can think of investing in it. You can either go for a post graduation. There are a lot of different good organization NIDs who actually give a post graduation. They have a post graduation in design, so you can opt for those kind of thing, or you can go for online coaching. There are paid courses as well. There are certificate courses as well from HFI, from lot of even international universities. So later on, maybe if once you are well familiar and you have your career path, then invest in it.
Okay. Coming to your journey, you are also a BCA graduate, right?
Correct.
Can you just tell us that how you moved into UI UX? Like what? How did you transition it?
Yeah, sure.
What are
So
the things that you did?
yeah, sure. About if talking about my journey, right? So for me, it was every time I always got into a job first, and then I learned through practical knowledge. And I had good mentors in my previous organization who actually I worked with them and I learned. I did few courses as well, right? I did a course from HFI, so they have the 7 day long courses. But to talk about it, so I started, as I mentioned, that I got my first laptop, and I was always into arts. So I was always into painting, about digital designing, and all those things. And I started those digitalized. I learned Photoshop. Previously, we used to use Adobe Photoshop, so I learned a Photoshop. I did a course there, and then I started designing, and that's how I got my first job as a graphic designer, where I started designing brochures, pamphlets for advertising purposes, the banners that you see on the websites, on the roads, right? So those big billboards and all, I started designing there. So I did that job for good 6-7 months, but then I got an opportunity of transitioning to a web designer. So that was my first internship I did. So all these internship and all were not paid that time, so I just picked them out of my curiosity, out of my interest, because I wanted to learn them. So I went into web designing. That's how I started designing from graphic. I become a digital designer. I started designing for websites. I started designing mobile application. From there, I started and picked on. And then my next job, I moved to a startup. In startup, they were right in ideation phase, where they actually wanted to do a user research, right? They wanted to do the designing from scratch. So there I experienced like how you design for a specific user, how you use those UX methods. And they even like then that company even funded me for a few courses that I took those courses online. I did this course from HFI, where I went there. It was a good 7 days course. So they organize these courses in different states. So you can register them, and in person they have a small class of I think 15-20 people, and they have good leaders there who have good experience, and they teach you about how to use, when to use, what method should you use, what research method you should use, how you should translate them into design, so all those things. And then I kept on switching my jobs and kept on learning more new things.
Okay. Okay, that's awesome. Another anonymous attendee has asked that how to choose projects when creating a portfolio.
Okay, so there are two things, right? So one is when you are creating your own portfolio, right? So when you are a fresher, uh, see, when you are a fresher and you want to apply to company, right? They now, when a single company gets hundreds and 200, like thousands of resumes, right? They need some kind of things to shortlist those things. So that's where your portfolio comes in, right? And that's how you can stand apart. Like you can actually showcase your design skills, right? So when you are designing, so when you want to create a portfolio and want to work on these fictitious projects just to create a portfolio, just to show your design skills, use some kind of, I'll say, latest trends, right? So maybe you can use like nowadays, like the latest trends is augmented reality, virtual reality. Use such kind of projects. Look at Google, go to Google, search for some such kind of products, look at those products, analyze those products, what kind of problems they have, right? What kind of use cases or edge cases they are not solving for. Use such kind of things and start building on it, and create your portfolio. But always make sure that you are actually doing all research, right? Don't just keep throwing designs, and don't just design randomly. uh, the second thing that I told about, like people like me who already have experience and who have worked in multiple companies, so we don't get to choose like what kind of things we want to, case studies we want to include in our portfolio, right? We are already experiencing them, we already have work to do. So whenever we go and apply to some other companies and all, we actually use our real time experience that we are doing in our current companies.
Okay, okay. So coming back to the portfolio, suppose if I've created this portfolio, what are some of the best platforms I can showcase? If I wanna, build my career into it and show my portfolio to other people.
Okay, so I'll answer that from a product designer perspective, from like what I am today and what I'll use. So the best tools for a UX designer is Notion and a Medium. So those are not actually a design tools, but those are more of a blogging tools. So, but those are amazing tool if you want to create a case study. So whenever you are creating any case study, right, you need to have some kind of description about it. What are the problems solved? What were the problem statements you are solving for? Like what were the research methods you did? So these two platforms like Notion and Medium, you can use to build your case study. You can even include pictures in it. You can include your designs in it. You can include your prototypes in it, working prototypes. Those things you can use. So these are the two are my favorite tools that I use for UX designers. For just if you are focusing just on UI and UI design, and you want to create a portfolio for UI design, for user interface design, use Dribble, use Behance. So these are two well-known design tools used by design community. You'll get feedback for your designs. You can even share it with any of the interviewer whom you are sending your portfolio. You can send those kind of links so they can view it. So for UI designer, Dribble, Behance, and for UX designer, I'll say Medium and Notion.
Okay. Pratik, on that note, one of the attendees named Kaustubh has asked, Sir, what is the value of UX design? Is it necessary to learn?
Oh wow, good question. You're actually talking like, am I important for the companies, right? Yes, it's very important. UX design, like it recently came into market, but if I'll tell you, these things have been doing. Every company who is designing a product, right? They are following these all methodologies and doing this. Uh, like even when the UX term didn't became this famous how it is now. So what's actually a job role of a UX designer is to actually understand your users, right? The few questions, the list that I showed you right starting of the my presentation, right? For whom you are designing, right? And what kind of users are going to use your product, why they should use your products, how is your product different from those million products which is there in the market, right? All these questions are answered by a UX designer. And not just the UX research, but developing a quick prototype, testing the wireframes. So whenever you are introducing any new product, right, a company has a fixed budget, and they invest in they. So when I say the company has a fixed budget, right? So company has what kind of, like, they might be running on investment, or maybe some kind of funds, whatever they have, and they cannot put all those funds into product building, right? They need to invest some in marketing, they want to invest some in promotions and all different things, right? So when they have limited budget, right, they cannot just build a product and then send it to market and then fail, right? If they do it, the company is gone, the company stops, right? They run out of their funds, and a lot of companies get like like don't perform well is because of this, right? They don't think about the users, they don't think about what kind of product they want to get to the market. How will that be different from other those millions and millions of product in the market, right? When you do such kind of things, the success, getting to success is really tough, and in that kind of thing. So these things, these kind of expenses can be minimized, and these kind of risk that you are taking as a company owner, right, can be minimized if you have a good UX designer. So UX designer does all these research, get all these things in place, test those kind of prototypes, what actually a user needs, right? In like today we are talking about 2020 when there's a pandemic going on, right? So today user need might be different. If you have an idea about designing a virtual platform like Zoom today, and users are using it like so much today, but the scenarios might be different when tomorrow everything is open, right? People might not be using such products
Mhm.
then. So understanding these, all these kind of question, all the user needs, all the pain points, you need a user experience designer.
Okay, I think that very well answers everyone's question that what exactly a UX designer is, or why it is very important. Another question is, we know that you are a BCA student, so in future, UI UX field is more beneficial or coding field is.
Okay.
With this, I actually have a different question because I'm
Mhm.
very curious how does a designer and a developer job overlaps? Like as a designer, do you need to know how to code?
Okay, yeah. So I'm from a coding background. Yes, I did a BCA. So I actually have a good understanding and good knowledge about like all these languages and all the HTML and even Java and all these things. But to be a designer, to be a UX designer specifically, you don't need to know coding, right? If you know coding, it's well and good, but always you can learn. So UX designer work with a lot of people, right? And the main skill that you need as a UX designer. So whenever a problem statement comes your way, right? That okay, like Pratik, this is the problem, and you need to solve for it. We need a solution for it. So as a user experience designer, all I should know is what kind of technology we are using. What are my limitations, right? I cannot give a solution which no one can develop, or let's say it's not even possible in today's scenario. So that kind of knowledge, like what is doable, what kind of, so if I'm designing an application, right, on what platform I'm using, what are the interaction patterns, what kind of challenges a user get on such kind of platform, right, when you are even for coding and all, having that kind of knowledge is good, because then actually you can design in a better way. You won't design something randomly which is not even possible, which cannot be coded, because in the end, like once our job gets and like once we design the whole experience, the next phase is the developers developing it, and that's how you get a digital product, right? So having that knowledge is really good, but if you say if that is a must skill for a UI designer should have, no, that's not a must skill.
Okay, coming back to this question. So in future, UI UX field is more beneficial or coding field is?
Well, good question. I'll say there is no comparison between both fields, right? If I'll say even for the coding, right? See, what is beneficial is, one is you have to stay updated what trends are going on. So as I mentioned, like AR and VR, if those things are going on, we should start developing our skill towards those kind of domains that we are. No matter you are in designing, no matter you are in coding, but you should always update your knowledge, right? And I think both coding and designing, when we're talking about digital products, right, both go in hand. So whenever you are designing for any product, you even need coders to code that project. So it's never like a single-handedly you can do anything, right? So I think if you talk about future, I think both of these fields have good future. The only um, one tip if I'll give you is keep yourself updated in both. So every day we have a different coding languages coming. Previously, when I was graduating, we used to learn C++ and Java. Now we have Python and we have React.js, which came up, right? So you should always update your knowledge. And whenever you have these kind of updated knowledge, you will always be in demand. There are a lot of different companies which will keep on coming. There are different product companies or different service company will always have demand for such kind of skills.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Pratik, so much. I think uh, attendees, if you have any other questions for Pratik, please do type in the Q&A box or the chat section. We'll just take the last question of the day. Otherwise, an anonymous attendee want to know that how can I find freelancing projects in UI UX industry?
Okay, not just I won't just tell you that the websites where you can get these freelance projects, but I'll even tell you the process. The first thing that you need to do is build a great portfolio, right? Uh, if you don't have currently, you don't have any kind of work, as I told you, get these fictitious problem statement and start building your portfolio so you can actually show design skills. You can actually show your user experience skills to the person who is hiring you for these freelance project. So create a good portfolio. Once you have done with the portfolio, uh, you can either, so there are few websites. There is freelance.com where you can go and create your account. All are free accounts where you can go create your accounts and start bidding for projects. There is guru.com, where again you can actually build your portfolio on their application as well and start applying for these projects. And once you start getting one or two projects, give your 100% to deliver those projects. And then again, like in my experience, like whenever you make one client happy, he always refer you to some other client. So then it becomes a chain reaction, and you start getting a lot of different requests. So yeah, there are different websites. So one is like freelance.com is what I used to use. There is guru.com. There was odes.com. So these are few websites where you can go create your profile and start applying for projects.
Okay. There is one final very cute question. Are there
Yeah.
any internship opportunities open in Flipkart now?
Yes, there are. So Flipkart is hiring. I think uh, we are open. We hire people for as interns as well, and I know a lot of people who came to Flipkart as interns and then got converted into permanent jobs and working and still working there like for 3 or 4 years as well. So yes, we do. I think our recruitment team even goes to different college for recruitments. So keep your eyes open. Look
So
for
suppose
LinkedIn.
if they want to apply, how should they go about? Should they go on Flipkart website?
Correct. So mostly, the most of the resumes that we get is from LinkedIn. We are very much updated and post all our job openings on LinkedIn. Go to flipkart.com, look for the job opportunities there, and not just on LinkedIn, but there are a lot of different websites where we post all our career opportunities which are there currently. So keep looking. Use Google. Uh, Type in like whatever skills you're looking for and apply.
Okay, okay then. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pratik. It was an amazing session. You shared so much valuable insights with you, and I hope that all the mentees have gotten a fair idea about the job and responsibility of UI UX designer and the major differentiation between them. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule for this. And yes, guys, so this marks the end of the webinar. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ila, for you also. Like, thank you. And thanks everyone for joining. Anything if you want to ask me still like offline, feel free to reach on my website or on my Instagram handle. You can post me questions. I'll be happy
Pratik,
to answer.
you can drop in your Instagram handle and your details on the chat section.
Yes, I'll do that.
So we have more upcoming webinars with amazing personalities like Pratik himself. Guys, keep following Qfuss, keep following MyCaptain. We'll keep you updated. Thank you, Pratik. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for joining us.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Have a nice. Okay, good night. Bye bye.
Bye.